10 of the world's deadliest serial killers. We all have this craving for a little thrill in our lives. Backpacking alone through Europe, skydiving and bungee jumping, and even swimming with sharks. But some especially cruel people find their deepest pleasure in the screams and cries of victims as they plead for mercy. From killer clowns to psycho housewives and bloodthirsty cannibals, this countdown will take you deep into the minds of unimaginable murderers. Who would have known that murder could hold such a dark spectrum of art? Oh, that's right. They knew. They. The world's deadliest serial killers. Eek! Just wait until we reveal our number 1 spot. It makes me shudder just thinking about the acts he committed. Let's check out number 10. Our 10th placer is a spawn from hell named Belle. Just like any immigrant who comes to America, Belle Gunness left Norway in search of a fresh start and a taste of the American dream. And indeed, she found them. A loving husband named Mads Sorensen, 5 wonderful children, and a candy store. A content, simple life. Who could ask for more? It all started with their candy store burning to the ground. Well, accidents happen, right? At least it's covered by insurance. But then disease struck their humble family when 2 of the kids, Caroline and Axel, suddenly died of acute colitis. Acute colitis and strychnine poisoning have overlapping symptoms. But who could even think of killing their own children? So poisoning was ruled out and Belle and Mads got their insurance money. As if God was playing jokes on the Gunness family, Mads, the husband, suddenly died. Luckily, 2 of Mads' insurance policies overlapped on that day. Maybe God wasn't so cruel after all. But it wasn't God playing around, it was the devil, and the devil was a woman named Belle Gunness. And this woman was suddenly dirty, filthy rich. But just like all demons, she craved for more. Belle remarried Peter Gunness, a widower who had 2 children, piggy banks just waiting to be hammered open. Not long after the wedding, one of the kids suddenly died. Peter felt something wasn't right, so he sent one of her daughters off to their relatives, right before a meat grinder crushed his head. Out of husbands, Belle realized that she didn't want to be tied down anymore. She was in America, after all. Strong, independent, 6 foot, 200 pounds and a woman. Belle belonged to no one but herself. So she decided to explore her options. She put an ad in the newspaper looking for well-off suitors, and just like moths to a flame, rich men with big bags of money came stumbling to her farm, and the farm turned into a slaughterhouse. After making them buy shares to her farm, she poisoned them or crushed their heads with the meat grinder. Old habits die hard, or so they say. Then she would chop them into pieces and either feed them to the pigs or bury them in the pens. Woof! Eventually, a fire ravaged her farm, killing everyone inside, even Belle Gunness herself. But that wasn't conclusive because the body was headless. Eventually, the corpse bell was rung when the coroner ruled that it was Belle after a dental bridge was found. Oh, and before we move on to our countdown, don't forget to like this video, turn on notifications, and subscribe to our channel, or Bach will rise from the dead and eat your face off! Number 9. Jack the Ripper reaps the 9th spot. In the late 1800s, a gruesome series of murders terrorized the Whitechapel district of London. In those days, the Whitechapel district was a place of no inhibition. Every corner reeked of sex and liquor. Every encounter was a chance for violence and crime. The streets were lined with brothels, and prostitution was only illegal if you became too noisy. Whew. Amidst all the chaos, Jack the Ripper saw opportunity. Suddenly, prostitutes were disappearing and found dead, disemboweled and disgusting. Organs meticulously removed from their bodies, specifically their kidneys and uterus. These weren't simple murders. They were thought to be hate crimes against women. Then the police started receiving letters from the alleged killer describing in specific details how these women begged for their lives before being butchered and turned into market meat. They were told that there was more to come. Ooh, a sadist was running free around the district. The murders prompted a widespread manhunt for Jack the Ripper, but he was never found. The killing stopped in the fall of 1888. Now Jack the Ripper is treated as a Halloween icon, an urban legend to be told in the warmth of a campfire. But London knows he wasn't some fantasy. Number 8. Sitting on the 8th spot is our mythical Dr. H.H. Holmes. Dr. Henry Howard H.H. Holmes became famous because of his so-called murder castle. A 3-story inn converted into a torture chamber that holds fascinating rooms filled with various tools and equipment used for tormenting and killing. But from the secret passages down to the chute that leads to the basement, fully equipped with a surgical table for cruel experiments, how much of these were actually real? H.H. Holmes was a killer, no doubt about it, but all 9 of his probable victims were essentially people he already knew. and it was all for the sake of hiding fraud and scams, including his ex-lovers and business partners Julia Connor, Emmeline Singrand, and Minnie Williams. The last victim to his killing spree was a fellow co-scammer, Benjamin Peitzel, and his 3 young children. Holmes was caught, but he was only tried and convicted for Peitzel's murder. The rest were never really proven. Before he was hung, he admitted to having 27 more victims, but some of them were actually alive and well. All of these overstatements may have left H.H. Holmes' real story in a foggy state. But in that thick fog lies dead bodies sacrificed for his ugly truth. Number 7. Holding the number 7 spot is Dr. Harold Shipman. Addiction is a universal dilemma. Whether it be food, cigarettes, or hard drugs, addiction can really ruin people. And Dr. Shipman's addiction did just that. It ruined hundreds of lives he was trusted to care for. Dr. Shipman saw a diverse range of patients come and go during his career. But no matter how disparate his patients were, the local coroner noticed that most of his patients ended up in the morgue. Attorney Angela Woodruff, a daughter of one of Shipman's victims, refused to believe that her mother left a separate will, leaving most of her estate to Dr. Shipman. So she led a series of investigations, including numerous exhumations and autopsies of Shipman's dead patients. It was discovered that Dr. Shipman gave lethal doses of morphine to his patients and forged results right after administering the killing blow. The deranged doctor was charged with 15 counts of murder, but a continuing audit of his entire medical career estimates that he may have been the real cause of death for 236 of his patients. In 2004, he was found hanging inside his cell. And just like all of his murdered, it was unclear whether he himself was the real cause of death. The Unabomber packs up the 6th spot. Child prodigies are a diamond in the rough, meant to be shaped and formed to serve as future leaders. But just like anything with potential, some of those diamonds turn out to be spectacular lumps of coal. Ted Kaczynski entered Harvard University at the age of 16, bringing a 167 IQ with him. He was also the youngest mathematics professor ever at the University of California, Berkeley. But after teaching for 2 years, he decided to leave everything behind and live a simple, isolated life in the woods, building a cabin, hunting rabbits, and crafting homemade bombs. Ted Kaczynski was responsible for 16 mailed or hand-delivered bombs to universities and airlines and 3 murders. He remained at large for 17 long years until he made his 3,500-word manifesto. Even he, a real-life genius, didn't think that his own words would lead to his demise. Since the manifesto was publicly released, the Unabomb Task Force, he even got his own fan club, Fancy, enlisted his sister-in-law, Linda Patrick, to help locate him. Linda was able to recognize his thought process through his writings and immediately reported him to the authorities. He was apprehended in his tiny cabin, where explosives and other bomb-making apparatus were found. Number 5. We're halfway through, better believers. Keep watching till the end as we reveal more shocking top serial killers like this guy on the 5th spot. John Wayne Gracie was a self-made building contractor and a family man with wife and kids. He was an active part of his community and a member of the Chicago area Jolly Joker Clown Club, frequently going by the name of Pogo the Clown. Pogo would occasionally dress up and attend children's parties and charity events performing the usual clown stuff. But Pogo the Clown didn't just smile and laugh and make kids pee their pants. This guy went the extra mile by raping, torturing, and strangling boys to death. A real-life Pennywise had a nasty craving for Georgie. When he wasn't clowning around, he would simply lure teenage boys to his house with the promise of a construction job, then proceed to rape, suffocate, and bury them right there on his property. For a span of 6 years, he molested and murdered 33 teenage boys and earned the moniker Killer Clown. So the next time you hear parents tell their kids that the neighborhood clown is just a friend, it's probably best you tell them about Pogo the Clown. Ugh. Number 4. Now we know why some people get creeped out by clowns, but what about a handsome, sexy man? In the 70s, Ted Bundy made a name for himself by raping and beating his victims to death with his trusty crowbar, and sometimes with a nice, firm strangle. He also embarked on occasional visits to sorority houses, where he'd go on a rampage and kill anyone he could lay his hands on. He's just so dreamy that girls fall limp in his presence, literally. Some may not know this, but Bundy actually escaped from prison twice. Once jumping out of a prison's second-story library window, and another by climbing out through ceiling holes. Ted Bundy was a crafty one. After representing himself during his trials and losing, he was placed on death row, where he admitted to killing 36 young women shortly before he was executed in the electric chair. Some crime experts and even Ted himself said that he didn't just kill 36 women. It was likely more than 100. During one of his trials, he admitted, "I don't feel guilty for anything. I feel sorry for people who feel guilt." What an animal. Number 3. Our list will not be complete without America's Midwestern cannibal at the 3rd spot. One of the most impressive things about Jeffrey Dahmer was how he managed to keep all the rotting corpses inside of his apartment, in the middle of the city. Dahmer had developed a certain taste for young men. He raped his victims before killing, dismembering, and sometimes having a bite or two. By the time he was caught, there were skulls displayed in his living room, jars of organs, and even a plastic tub filled with chemicals of decomposing bodies. My man's a Breaking Bad fan. The Milwaukee cannibal was charged with the murder of 17 teenage boys. During one of his trials, he admitted that he even tried drilling holes in their heads to try and control them. Number 2. A film-worthy thriller killer falls on the 2nd spot. What do you get when insanely religious parents abuse their parental power over their children, conditioning them to have a pathological fear of both women and sex? An Edward Gein phenomenon, that's what. It was only with the sudden disappearance of Bernice Warden, a local hardware store owner, did the police decide to visit Gein's house. But what they discovered was not a house, but a cultic shrine for Ed Gein's dead mother. Human body parts were turned into household items: chairs, bowls, plates, you name it, Gein's got it. Faces were used as wall hangings, human torsos were made into vests, even nipples were crafted into a belt. Gein's story was the inspiration for films Psycho, Silence of the Lambs, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Warden was found dismembered, her head hanging in the barn, and her heart in a plastic bag. Even with all the bloodstains, all Gein saw was his ultimate purpose: to create a woman suit to crawl into so he could become his mother. It was found out that he dug up multiple graves and exhumed bodies just to achieve his dream. Edward Gein was diagnosed with schizophrenia and declared unfit for trial. If you think Gein was the most disturbing serial killer, wait till we reveal our top spot. Number 1. We already know how the Japanese love eating their food raw, but this guy really lives up to that stereotype. Issei was studying in Paris when he met his Dutch classmate, René Hartvlet. It was hunger at first sight. Sagawa Issei constantly invited René to his apartment to study and have dinner. René innocently accepted, time and again, unsuspecting the nefarious plot that followed. After finally deciding to push through with his 32-year-long dream, Sagawa shot René in the back and raped her before eating most of her breasts and face. It was a dream come true. Barf! Every bite was pure ecstasy. Every piece was electric. Frankly, I can't fathom why everyone doesn't feel this urge to eat, to consume other people, Sagawa said in one of his interviews. Sagawa was eventually caught by the French police when he tried to dispose of René's remaining body parts, but he was declared legally insane and unfit to stand trial, so he was deported back to Japan. To this day, Sagawa the cannibal is roaming freely in the streets of Tokyo. A real-life ghoul on the loose. So there you have it, better believers, 10 of the world's deadliest serial killers. Which one did you think was the deadliest, the nastiest, and the craziest? Let us know in the comments section below. Thanks a bunch for watching, and if you found this video fun and interesting, check out one of these.